told you to stay small. They spread lies about you in quiet rooms. They shoved you into corners and counted you out. Here's the raw fact they hope you never notice. While they whispered and plotted, people with real power put your name on a list and decided you were worth protecting. That's not a story. It's a hard truth that cuts like a blade to anyone who built their life on pretending you didn't matter. You wake up some mornings and feel the weight of the fight. The calls that never came, the doors that stayed closed, the sneers that felt personal. That pain is real. It taught you to hide, to grin, to keep your head down. But the silence after the storm is different now. The enemies who shouted the loudest are moving slower. Their jokes have stopped. There's a new hush where there used to be noise, and that hush is not empty. It's the sound of plans being reconsidered, favors failing, and a balance quietly tipping in your favor. Listen, the people plotting against you are not dumb. They know how to use money, gossip, and influence. What they don't know is who is quietly undoing those moves behind closed doors. While your enemies spend their nights trying to ruin you, other people with access, with authority, are erasing their ledger entries. They are the ones who reroute information, who open a file at the right time, who choose to say one sentence in one room that changes everything. You won't meet them at a cafe. You'll never see their faces in your feed. But their decisions will change the shape of your life. If you feel that pull, that low hum of something large moving in the background, you're not imagining it. Press like and subscribe to pay this message back. There are patterns in history that repeat for a reason. Powerful alliances have quietly saved lives and toppled empires long before anyone wrote it in the papers. A single person in the right place can decide that a life is worth the trouble. They can sign a paper, make a call, or block a move, and the ripples reach places you never expected. Those choices were made for people much like you, people who kept going when the world wanted them to stop. That is the line that connects the past to what's happening now. Think about the way your world has changed in small ways. Doors that were locked are nudged open. Old contacts answer your message with a calm you didn't expect. People who once ignored you are suddenly polite in a way that smells like calculation. That shift is not coincidence. It is the effect of strategy. Real allies move quietly. They don't boast. They build ladders in the dark and throw them down when the time is right. Your role was never to know each rung, just to keep climbing. This is not mercy. It's calculation. The people protecting you are not sentimental. They are precise. They saw potential or principle in you and decided it was worth their risk. That decision changes the enemy's math. All those lies and bribes they relied on suddenly look small when faced with systems that can't be bought with cash or fear. Your enemies began to find that the favors they paid for stopped working. Contracts quietly expired. Connections frayed. The more they pushed, the more invisible hands held steady behind you. Now, a word to you, the chosen one. Thank you for staying, for surviving, for carrying what you carry. If this message lands with you, hit like and subscribe. Doing that helps this small but real network of truth grow louder. It gives us power to speak, to help others who are in the same shadow you once stood in. Your click is not small. It is part of the proof that we are not alone. When you come back from pressing that button, feel the change deepen. The plan around you is not random. It is a mapped strategy. There are stages: assessment, containment, and then the reveal. First, your allies gather facts, quietly. They watch how enemies move and where their strength lies. Then they close down the weak points, cutting off the routes the enemy uses to strike. Finally, they move in a way that looks sudden, because it is. That suddenness is the result of months of invisible work. To the enemy, it will feel like a trap. To you, it will feel like justice finally catching up. You will see the traces of this in small human things, a job offer that appeared right when you needed it, a witness remembered the truth, a contract that favored you, a file that suddenly changed hands. These are not miracles. They are the output of careful choice. And when the final move lands, the people who spent years mocking you will be left holding the hollow sound of their own voices. They will ask how it happened. They will ask how you knew. Their question will be the clearest proof that the quiet work was real. This is not only about winning, it is about closure. For years your enemy fed off your doubt. Now they will feed off your steadiness. The peace that follows a right move is strange. It is relief, revenge, and rebirth all at once. You will feel your chest loosen. You will cry, maybe not from sorrow, but from the weight lifting. Those tears are not for a creator above. They are for the universe that moves through people, for the small network of choices, for the human hands that refuse to let you fall. Hold on to this. You are not alone. Power exists in rooms you will never enter. It is messy, human, and strategic. It does not sing your praises. It protects quietly and with force when required. Keep your head. Keep your heart steady. The allies in high places are not there to take your place. They are there to make sure the world can no longer take it from you. Stay sharp, stay ready, and when the moment comes, watch them choke on the taste of their own plans. Chosen one, before we move deeper, claim this moment. The hush you feel is real. People with access and authority are already aligning to protect what you carry. If you want to anchor your place in that quiet movement, drop 777 in the comments as your signal, not for attention, but to say you see it, you stand with it, and you will follow through. Like this video to strengthen our reach and subscribe so more allies and more truth can find this message. Staying with this video means choosing to understand the plan step by step and to hold the calm while others panic. If you are a true chosen one, you'll feel that pull inward, curiosity, steady courage, and a refusal to leave before the reveal. Comment the number 777 and then settle in. Keep your notifications on. The next sections will expose how doors open, how favors fall away, and how a hidden strategy turns balance into closure. This is not spectacle, it's strategy. If you want to witness the final moves and be part of the proof, stay close and let the rest unfold. Prepare yourself. Everything about to change. Stay alert. Number 1. They miscounted. Their power is now your armor. You treated influence like a private weapon. Funny thing, you just forged the shield that will stop every blade you sharpened. They told themselves stories to sleep at night. They counted favors like currency, collected introductions like trophies, and believed that influence was a permanent title they could hang on their wall. That arrogance blinded them. Here's the simple, ugly truth that slaps harder than any insult. The tools they hid and hoarded, the contacts, the contracts, the closed doors, are being redirected quietly and efficiently to protect you. That realization lands like a punch because it destroys the whole fantasy they built around control. Think about how ridiculous their position looks now. For years they strutted around convinced that power was a possession you could never lose. They whispered that you were nobody, that your voice would never echo in the rooms that matter. They invested their energy in crushing you. Now watch the reversal. Their investments start flipping. A call they expected to answer goes unanswered. A favor they paid for fails to pay off. The ledger that once read their advantage begins to show withdrawals in your favor. That's not luck. That's strategy executed by people who understand systems and who chose to move differently. How could this happen, you might ask? Who are these allies? The simple answer is this: people who operate inside the system and refuse to let petty power plays define who lives and who falls. These are decision makers who see value beyond the noise, judges of character who prioritize consequence over spectacle, insiders who prefer quiet fixes to public dramas. They don't parade their actions. They reroute data, they delay approvals, they elevate a file to the attention it deserves at the exact right time. You won't see them on social media. You'll feel their impact when doors you thought closed begin to open. The enemy's confusion is delicious because it's rooted in their own making. They built a machine that told them influence equals invincibility, but machines fail when a single cog shifts. The same networks they use to squeeze you now become the pathways for your vindication. Imagine handing someone the map to your fortress and realizing they used it to fortify the house across the street. That's the core of this reversal. The resources were never inherently moral or evil. They were tools. Tools can be repurposed, and when they are repurposed against the people who use them for cruelty, the result is clinical and inevitable. You'll hear objections. They're lucky. It's temporary. They bribed someone. These are the talking points of people trying to keep dignity for their failing methods. Reality answers plainly. This is not a fluke if it repeats in patterns. Look at the small changes, the timely intervention, the witness who remembers, the signature that appears at the right hour. Those are not miracles. They are coordinated moves made by people who chose to protect a life that matters. You didn't ask for it. You didn't grovel. You were simply recognized by people who measure returns differently, by principle, by potential, by the strategic merit of having you stand. Let's be clear about intent. This is not romance with fate. This is strategic repositioning. The allies in high places don't act out of sentimentality. They calculate. They see that protecting you removes a liability, preserves an asset, or corrects an injustice that would later cost more than it's worth. Their decisions look humane because they're smart. Smart people sometimes act kindly because it's the right long-term investment. That's why the enemy's rage is so pure. It's externally fueled by humiliation and internally fueled by the loss of their supposed edge. What about the people watching, the bystanders who have been hurt by the same network of influence? For you, this should be a lesson in patience and in presence. The system isn't fixed in favor of the loudest voice. It bends to those who withstand pressure and keep their integrity. You were tested. You didn't perform for applause. You stayed. That endurance is magnetic to the kind of allies who operate behind the scenes. They do not need a show to deploy power. They need evidence that something is worth defending. Your consistency provided that evidence. Now picture the enemy's inner monologue. We had leverage. We bought loyalty. We made the rules. Each of those statements was a lie dressed as confidence. Leverage is only real when it produces outcomes. Buying loyalty fails when the system recognizes cost and risk. Rules crumble when their enforcers quit cooperating. The most brutal part of this entire shift is the silence that follows. The loudest voices find their microphones cut. The influence they relied on becomes ineffective because those who control the levers decide to flip the script. You want proof? Look at the small human fingerprints of this turn. A partner who once refused to vouch for you now sends a message that tilts a contract your way. An old complaint is resurrected because someone with access pushed it back into view at the perfect moment. A bureaucratic chain that used to stall your progress suddenly flows. These are not coincidences. They are outcomes of targeted decisions. They expose the enemy's false economy. Their money and favors only bend outcomes when the right people allow them to. When those people don't, all their spending is theater. And to the enemy reading this, listen closely. Every favor you paid for, every influence you traded to silence truth, every door you thought you owned is now at risk of being used against the things you built to hurt others. Your archive of leverage is not a permanent vault. It's a ledger that can be turned. You created the instruments of your own undoing by believing those instruments could never be repurposed. That arrogance is your weakness. For you, the chosen one, understand what this means at a human level. This protection doesn't remove the scars you carry. It doesn't erase the nights you spent wondering if anyone noticed. What it does is change the narrative moving forward. Where there was blockage, now there is passage. Where there was silence, now there are voices that matter speaking on your behalf. It's not vindication for show, it's recalibration of consequence. Your survival is being turned into leverage for justice and opportunity. Finally, don't mistake this for the end. This is the reset. The enemies who relied on hoarded influence will either adapt or implode. Meanwhile, your role is simple. Show up, stay clear, and let the system do the work it's been engineered to do for those who matter. Keep your eyes open for the signs, subtle shifts, helpful interruptions, doors opening, and recognize them as part of a deliberate design. When the reveal comes, it will not be theatrical. It will be surgical. And the sound of their astonishment will be the clearest confirmation that the resources they thought were never meant for you are now your armor. Stay with that image. Take the quiet victory in, and when you're ready, we'll move to the next truth and watch as the plan tightens its grip on the enemy's false throne. Number 2, your name became the key. It opens doors you've never walked through. Say my name in the right room and watch a plan reroute itself. You thought silence would bury me. Instead, silence carried my name like a mandate. They built their world around visibility, loud voices, public favors, obvious power plays. That was their comfort. Then your name started doing a job they never imagined. It became the quiet password that flips the lock on doors you never knocked on. Imagine this. You're standing at a bus stop, breath steaming in the cold, while somewhere in a high-rise your name is spoken and a meeting shifts so that one line item suddenly favors you. The geography of influence changed without you crossing a street. That shift terrifies the people who swore you'd stay small. How does a name travel, you might wonder? It moves because your life left a track. Not visible like a billboard, but visible to those who read subtleties. Your endurance, your integrity, the pattern of how you handled pressure. Those are signals. Decision makers watch for signals. They triangulate reputation from fragments, witness accounts, patterns, quiet persistence. When those fragments line up, your name becomes a risk assessment. They place you on the table and ask, is this worth protecting? The answer for them is yes, and when the answer flips, plans rearrange. Names are not neutral, someone once said. That's true. A name can be currency or a threat depending on who hears it. For your enemies, this is a nightmare because they traded in noise. They shouted so loud they thought it would drown out any echo of you. Instead, your silence echoed into places where noise can't reach. Imagine a submarine pinging quietly under waves while men on deck keep shouting. The ones with sonar hear what matters. Your name is that ping now. Low, precise, and impossible to ignore if you know where to listen. You'll hear the conspiratorial voices. Who are these people talking about them? Is this a smear campaign? Are they manipulating outcomes? These are the panic lines of cornered opponents. The reality is more mundane and more damning. Influence often works through judgment calls, not spectacle. A mid-level official decides a file should be escalated. A long-ignored investigator finds a foothold to reopen an old case. A board member remembers a conversation and votes differently. These are human choices made by people with access. They don't need fanfare, they need evidence and risk assessment. Your life supplied that evidence. Is this permanent? They ask. No, nothing in human systems is permanent, but permanence isn't the point. The point is consequence. Every strategic choice that favors you changes the opponent's cost calculus. Bribes stop working when the gatekeepers stop answering. Blackmail loses bite when those who could retaliate are already leaning the other way. The enemy's ledger of leverage finds new entries that read against them. That is the real damage, not a single victory, but a shifting environment that makes their methods brittle. Here are 3 images to make this concrete. Imagine a library where only certain readers are allowed. Your name becomes the stamp that lets a forgotten volume be pulled for review. Imagine a switchboard operator who used to forward calls to your enemies. Now they forward one call to an investigator who didn't like the way the account was handled. Imagine a referee who used to shrug at obvious fouls. Now the same referee keeps the whistle and writes down the infractions, small human acts, surgical, cumulative and devastating to those who built their safety on predictable silence. You didn't do anything flashy, you'll think. That's because the movement that protects you didn't need flash. It needed precision. Think of a clockwork mechanism where one tooth shifts and the whole gear set changes tempo. The allies in high places don't broadcast, they calibrate. They place your name in lists, in briefings, in quiet margins. They treat it like a variable in a larger equation. When the math tips, outcomes change. That's how your name becomes authority. To the enemy, this is humiliation. They believed influence was a property you could hoard like trinkets, badges, dinners, favored mentions. Those were never the true levers. The real levers are credibility, timing, and the ability to make consequences unavoidable. Your name carries credibility now. It triggers timing. It foreshadows consequence. That psychological switch is what terrifies them most. They can no longer assume that their shouts will drown you out. Their shouts now echo in empty rooms while your name moves the table. Who are these allies, you may ask? They aren't mythical guardians. They are people embedded in systems. A clerk who remembers your file, a manager who values long-term stability over short-term noise, a decision-maker who refuses to normalize cruelty because it becomes a liability. They could be someone who owes a moral debt, or someone who calculated that protecting you saved more trouble than letting you fall. These are not saints. They are players with stakes and clear-headed assessments. They act because keeping you afloat is smarter than ignoring the rot that could spread. Can it be exposed? The enemy hopes so. Exposure would let them spin the narrative back in their favor, but exposure requires a stage and allies who want the drama. Your protectors prefer to move in the margins, where the enemy's scripts can't find a microphone. They also know the value of timing. A reveal comes when the impact is maximal and the enemy's options are minimal. That's why the moves will appear sudden, not because they were improvised, but because the setup was meticulous. You might ask, will I know when my name did this work? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You may see the results. A contract lands, a witness speaks, a door opens. Other times the protection is invisible because its purpose was simply to block a blow you never felt. Either way, the outcome is the same. Your life is repositioned in systems that matter. That repositioning creates space for opportunity, reconciliation, and justice. 3 things your enemies valued only as trophies, not as responsibilities. Here's another metaphor. Picture a chessboard where your name becomes a queen's pawn nobody expected. The enemy spent moves trying to trap a rook, not knowing that pawn would promote and change the game. Now they scramble, rewriting tactics on the fly. Their panic is the sound of strategies unspooling. This is the deeper cruelty to the enemy. They cannot brand this as luck without sounding small. They cannot claim its manipulation without evidence. All they have left is the narrative of fate, and to your foes, fate sounds like an excuse. Meanwhile, you sit in a different reality. The hush around you is not empty. It is full of cautious conversation that tilts in your favor. The systems that once ignored you now account for you as a variable that matters. For you, chosen one, there is a lesson in dignity here. Don't confuse visibility with value. Your value traveled where your body did not because you carried something that mattered beyond applause: resilience, clarity, and a refusal to perform for survival. Those things are magnetic to people who hold levers and keys. Your name is now their password because it signals a return on investment of integrity, something the enemy never bothered to understand. Hold this. Your name will keep opening rooms. It will be spoken in spaces you will never enter. That is not some eerie magic. It is the result of human choice, reoriented by evidence and consequence. Watch for the changes, receive them with steadiness, and let the network of small strategic moves do what it does best: shift the balance. When you're ready, we'll move to the next truth and see how these opened rooms become stages for the final reveals. Number 3. Break me and watch your whole machine fall. They don't protect you because they like you. They protect you because your fall would take them with you. Listen up. The reason people in high places move to shield you isn't pity. It's calculation. Your life is tied into systems, deals, and balances they depend on. Hurt you, and the shockwaves hit their ledgers, their reputations, and the quiet arrangements that keep them safe. That is the cold fact your enemies never understood. Why would they care? Because your existence is a node in a larger network. Remove that node, and what seemed stable starts to bend. Imagine a dam with one stone missing. At first it's a trickle, then a crack, then everything downstream changes. Imagine a spreadsheet where one line item flips from ignore to urgent, and suddenly budgets, contracts, and plans rearrange. Imagine a cast of careful people who rely on a delicate order. Your removal would force them to fix what you broke. That's not emotional. It's survival math. What if they're just being political? Yes, they are political. They're also practical. These allies aren't saints. They're players who calculate risk. If your destruction would trigger scandal, legal exposure, or a chain reaction that threatens their position, they step in. It's not romance with destiny. It's self-preservation dressed as protection. And for your enemies, that truth is the worst kind of humiliation. The very system they trusted now makes them protect what they wanted gone. Here's how it looks in real life. A whistleblower's silence avoids a probe that would sink many careers. A timely memo prevents a contract from being torn up. A single witness remembered at the right hour stalls a wave of cancellations. These are small acts with huge downstream effects. They are the reason the people with power choose to shield you, because the fallout from breaking you is worse than the trouble of keeping you safe. What should I do? Stay steady. Your role isn't to command the shields. Your role is to survive with dignity. When the system bends to protect you, don't cheapen that mercy with reckless moves. Use the space to rebuild, to gather truth, and to strengthen the parts of the world that can be broken by lies. To your enemies, you gambled that removing one life would secure many gains. You were wrong. The stakes you wanted to play with were tied to structures you didn't own. Now watch as those structures refuse to crumble for your sake. Take that in. Let it fuel your calm, not your arrogance. The protection you have is practical, precise, and hard to undo. Keep your eyes clear. The next move will land where it hurts them most. Number 4. They're watched by invisible systems, not just people. You thought a blind spot would save you. The room was already scanned. You don't disappear from a grid, you show up on someone else's map. Your enemies assume protection looks like bodyguards and favors. That's their comfort zone: human faces, wallets, loud alliances. Here's the brutal reality they can't handle. The protection around you runs deeper. It's made of systems, instincts, and networks that read patterns long before any human notices. Think radar more than rifles. Think a firewall that reroutes a missile before it reaches the server. That's why your foes' plans collapse in ways that feel impossible to them. How can something unseen stop me, you might ask? It's simple. Institutions keep memory and momentum. Files, protocols, informal relationships, and people who've been burned before. These things build a surveillance that's not flashy, but surgical. A clerk remembers an irregularity and flags it. A mid-level official decides not to sign. An algorithm bumps a file into review. The sum of those small acts becomes a force field, not spiritual gods, just precise human systems, and the quiet way the universe arranges consequences when enough right moves stack up. Imagine this: a fisherman who knows the tides, spots a ripple long before a sailor in the fog notices a storm, or a city's traffic control that reroutes a lane the moment an accident is predicted, invisible work that prevents chaos. Or a library index that suddenly highlights one document because someone finally connected two notes. These are small, technical, human things, but they add up into something your enemies call weird, because it's beyond their noisy tactics. They try to outplay it with bribes, threats, and theatrics. It fails. Calls go unanswered. Emails vanish. Witnesses remember the right detail at the right time. Plans that looked airtight are exposed as brittle. That humiliation isn't accidental. It's the system doing its job. Protecting what it senses is vital. The more your enemies shout, the clearer the silence around you becomes. Silence here is not absence, it's surveillance, doing its quiet work. So what should you do? Stay steady. Don't seek the spotlight or the explanation. Let the unseen scaffolding do its work while you rebuild. Accept that protection sometimes feels invisible because it's designed to be invisible. Your safety isn't magic. It's the result of many human decisions made by people who refuse to let a useful node collapse. Hold that certainty. When you see plans fall apart around those who wanted you gone, you'll know why. Next, we'll move into how this protection turns into action, the reveal that makes your enemies choke on their own schemes. Number 5. They're guarding you like capital. You're not a liability, you're an investment. They don't keep you safe because they pity you. They keep you safe because you pay dividends later. You're not a casualty to be written off. You're a ledger entry someone refuses to erase. This isn't sentimental, it's economics. The people watching you aren't protecting a momentary life, they're protecting a future return. They see what your enemies can't, the long arc of influence your survival produces. Where others see a struggling person, your allies see a blueprint that will pay out in consequence, change, and power. Imagine a seed in winter. To the impatient eye, it looks dead. To a farmer who understands seasons, it's the first line of a harvest. Or picture a bond that matures years from now. The money isn't useful today, but it will be critical when it pays off. That's how high-level protectors think. They secure what will matter later because losing it now would cost them more than the trouble of guarding you. What evidence do we have, you might ask? Look for patterns, opportunities timed to your readiness, doors that open when your timing aligns, people who step in to hold things together when everyone else steps back. These aren't accidents, they are risk management. Smart people treat promising people like assets. They hedge, they insure, and when necessary, they defend. Think of it like chess. A pawn looks expendable until it reaches the other side and becomes a queen. Your protectors move pieces to preserve that pawn. The enemy mocked the pawn. Now they watch as it advances, protected by moves they didn't see coming. Are they waiting for me to earn it? No, that's the difference. Investment is not always reward-based, it's projection-based. Your allies measure potential, not applause. They calculate that protecting you avoids future crises, creates leverage, or secures influence that will matter when the stakes are highest. That calculation is cold, practical, and almost always right. This is why attempts to crush you fail so spectacularly. You're not just surviving, you're being preserved to produce impact. The delays, the roadblocks, the uncomfortable pauses, many were safety measures, not punishments. They kept the fragile parts intact until the timing was right. For your enemies, this is humiliating. They thought erasing you would end a risk. Instead, they made you more valuable. Every failed attack just raises your value on the ledger they can't read. So what do? Use this protection wisely. Build, plan, and prepare. Don't waste the capital. Your survival is someone else's strategic move. Turn that move into results. When the harvest comes, it won't be about proving them right or wrong. It will be about delivering what they protected you for, a future that changes the game for everyone who believed in you. Number 6. Your shield is layered. They smash one gate, another rises. They hit one link and expect the chain to snap. Watch them learn chains don't break where they think. You can't break what keeps rebuilding itself. Your enemies keep betting on a single strike. They find a weak link, bribe a voice, or slander someone they think matters, and they breathe early. That breath turns into a cough. Why? Because your protection isn't a single gate. It's a network of gates stacked one behind the other, each set to react the moment another fails. Smash one, and another already moves into place. That's the reality they can't stomach. Imagine a fortress with concentric walls. Cut through the first, and the second is waiting. Or picture a software system with backups. You delete one server, and another automatically restores the data. Or think of a relay race. If one runner falls, the next one surges forward without missing a beat. These aren't pretty metaphors, they're how your safety actually operates. It's redundant, precise, and designed to outlast coordinated attacks. How can this be? Who is doing it, you may ask? It's not always one heroic figure. It's people in positions who see the risk of losing you and choose to act. It's procedures, habits, small decisions made by people who don't want chaos in their world. It's the shuffled file, the delayed signature, the colleague who quietly remembers the truth. Sometimes it's an algorithm, a policy, or a legal technicality. The point is this: the system regenerates because multiple nodes care enough to intervene. They're lucky, opponents will claim. No, luck doesn't explain repeat failures. Patterns do. Each failed attempt leaves a breadcrumb the system reads. Each victory for them builds a tolerance for risk. And each failure teaches the protectors where to strengthen. The more they strike, the smarter the defense becomes. Their tactics become predictable. Your shield becomes adaptive. What should you do? Stay steady and practical. Don't step into showmanship or try to micromanage the protection. Keep living, keep preparing, and let the layered system do what it was built to do. When a door slams, expect another to open. When a voice silences, expect a dozen others to speak. That is how survival turns into inevitability. To the enemy reading this, your one-hit wonder strategy is dead. You trained on easy marks and forgot to expect networks. Now watch as every attempt to cut you down only proves how many hands are still holding the rope. Number 7. Their own weapons now shield you. The real shock is who's standing behind you. They celebrated having the score. Now that scoreboard is being used against them. You thought their friends were permanent. Watch their friends turn the page. Here's the throat punch. Your protection doesn't come from obvious faces. It comes from the very halls, the very offices, the very networks your enemies bragged about. The ones they said were untouchable, judges, officers, board members, gatekeepers, end up acting differently when the stakes are real. That reversal is what leaves them stunned. They built their safety on predictable allies, and those allies just switched the script. Who are these people? Not saints, not mythic saviors. Real people with access who decided the cost of letting you fall was greater than the price of protecting you. A judge who values stability over scandal. A director who refuses to let corruption spread. An insider who quietly reroutes a file. These are the faces that tilt outcomes when no one is watching. It's not theater. It's subtle, bureaucratic, ordinary power used with uncommon integrity. How did this happen, you ask? It happens when systems meet consequence. People in power can't ignore long-term risk. They see what your enemies don't, that destroying you brings collateral damage they cannot afford. So, they act. They reroute. They delay. They remember. The same networks that once amplified the enemy's reach now carry your name like a warning label. Handle with care. That's the irony. The tools of oppression become instruments of protection. Is it permanent? Nothing human is permanent, but permanence isn't required for victory. Even temporary shifts in loyalties change the field. One decisive vote, one timely memo, one refusal to cooperate can dismantle a campaign built on arrogance. The enemy loses their assumed leverage in ways that last far beyond a single moment. What should you do? Stay steady. Don't fetishize the reveal. When unlikely allies show up, treat it as strategic space to rebuild and expand, not as a moment for show. The real win is what you do with the time they bought you. Organize, repair, and prepare for impact. To your enemies, you taught yourself to trust that power was yours alone. That pride is your undoing. The very networks you leaned on were repurposed by people who value consequences more than loyalty to cruelty. That discovery is the loudest silence you'll ever hear. The kind that says the game is over. Stay silent and watch them realize their allies don't belong to them anymore. Number 8. You're marked untouchable. That red line isn't for debate. Touch that life and the ground beneath you gives way. They thought rules were negotiable. Someone else wrote the terms. This isn't about favors or secret deals. It's about an order, an invisible boundary drawn around you that says, plain and final, do not touch. Your enemies keep guessing at reasons, fear, strategy, or bribery. They miss the point. Something larger than their schemes has set a limit they can't cross. The shock that freezes them is not that you're protected, It's that your protection is enforced like a rule in a system they don't control. How does that even work, you'll ask? Think less about miracles and more about mechanisms. Systems have default behaviors, fail-safes, and gatekeepers. When enough right people, protocols, and consequences align, they create a rule that behaves like law. Try to pry at it, and you trigger those fail-safes. Doors close, paperwork vanishes, allies who seemed pliable refuse to cooperate. It looks supernatural to the schemer because it acts outside their playbook, but it's the result of the right levers being pulled at the right time. Imagine a dam with a sealed valve labeled "Do Not Open." Every attempt to force it triggers sensors, and the river reroutes itself. Or picture a legal red line stamped across a file. Touch it, and auditors, cameras, or procedures flood the scene. Or think of a chessboard where one square is untouchable. Any piece that lands there causes the board to reset. Those images aren't poetry. They're how enforcement shows up in systems that matter. Is this permanent? Is the next question. Permanence isn't the measure. Enforceability is. The mark on you lasts as long as the system that protects it finds value in keeping you intact. That could be decades. It could be a lifetime. The key fact is this: the barrier is not casual. It's not negotiable in the moment. Your enemies discover that the harder they push, the more the system closes ranks. Can they get around it? They'll try, because pride makes men reckless. But workarounds cost. They demand exposures, risks, and trade-offs the schemers can't afford. The more they force the issue, the higher the price they pay. For themselves, for their networks, for the reputations they treasure. That calculus is why many stop trying, and why those who persist fail spectacularly. For you, chosen one, this is a call to calm. Don't test the boundary for sport. Use the protection with humility and strategy. Build quietly. Repair what was broken. Prepare for the moment when the right doors open without fanfare. When your enemies realize their hands are bound by rules they can't touch, their disbelief will be the loudest confirmation you'll ever hear. Stay steady. The red line is real, and it's keeping you standing. Number 9. They're not just failing, they're building their own case. You dig a pit for someone and fall in with the shovel in your hand. Every plot writes its author's signature. Your enemies are signing their own indictment. They think their schemes vanish when they fail. That's arrogance speaking. The brutal truth is this: every whisper, every forged paper, every staged witness is being logged, catalogued, and saved. Their failures aren't wipeouts, they're receipts. The very energy they pour into destroying you becomes evidence that points straight back at them. How can that be, you might ask? Because systems remember, people remember. Small acts create trails: a suspicious email, an offhand brag, a hurried call. Alone, those things look like noise. Together, they form a pattern. Imagine a camera in a hallway that seems to miss you but catches every person who walks by. Imagine a ledger where every debit against you becomes a debit against their name. Imagine a river that records the footprints of every stone tossed in. The trail gets longer with every toss. That's how their undoing piles up. They believed anonymity would shield them. It doesn't. Modern systems, legal, corporate, social, translate intent into traceable proof. The more they try, the more they expose their methods. Who they bribed, who they blackmailed, who they silenced. What looked like clever sabotage becomes a file. What sounded like rumors becomes testimony. Their persistence turns into the most damning thing, a pattern. Can they stop it? No, not easily. Cover-ups require cooperation, risk, and time. The louder they get, the more fingerprints they leave. The cleverest move for them would be silence, but pride rarely takes that route. Instead, they double down, and every double down is another page in a dossier someone is building. For you, chosen one, this is fuel, not fear. Let their noise do the work. Keep steady. When they panic, they reveal. When they attack, they leave traces. Your protection doesn't just block blows, it converts them into documentation that proves what they are. That's strategic justice. The opposition fights, and in fighting, signs their own fate. 3 quick images to hold on to: a spyglass that records who peered through it, a ledger that flips entries back to the writer, a courtroom clerk stamping exhibits while the accused squeals. Small prosaic things add up into unstoppable proof. So watch them. Let them talk. They're not merely failing, they're furnishing the evidence that will finish their story. When the reckoning comes, it won't be drama. It will be paperwork, testimony, and the quiet collapse of a plan they thought was bulletproof. Stay calm. Their noise is your case. Their receipts are your vindication. Number 10. They turn on each other. You're the wedge that breaks their power. Watch them trade loyalty for suspicion. You didn't do the tearing, they did. You were the mirror they never wanted to see. They built a fortress out of alliances and assumed numbers meant safety. That fortress is cracking, not because you attacked the walls, but because your protection rewired the rooms inside. Your survival doesn't just block their plans, it turns their unity into a slow poison. The louder they shout about solidarity, the louder the whispers grow behind their backs. Side glances multiply, trust dissolves. That is the most brutal victory of all. You become the reason they can't stand together. How does one person do that, you might ask? Simple. Systems exposed to pressure reveal weak seams. When schemes fail repeatedly, fingers start pointing. Who leaked this becomes the real question. Who's keeping quiet follows. People who once shared drinks now scan faces for guilt. Greed surfaces. Old debts and grievances resurface like rot. The joint strategy collapses because the players are too busy defending themselves. They implode from the inside. Imagine a tightly woven rope. Cut one strand and the load shifts to the next. Keep cutting and the rope frays from within. Or picture a crew rowing in sync. At first they move together, then one person's hesitation throws off the rhythm, and the whole boat veers toward chaos. Or think of a conspiracy like a spiderweb. Poke it, and the vibrations reveal every hand that touched it. Those images show how alliances built on convenience break when consequence arrives. They're powerful. Can't they regroup? They can try, but paranoia is contagious. Rebuilding requires trust, and trust is the currency their actions squandered long before the cracks appeared. Once doubt takes root, every meeting becomes a tribunal. Everyone's motives are interrogated. Partnerships that depended on mutual blindness now require transparency they cannot provide. That's why temporary coordination rarely survives the pressure your protection generates. What should you do? Watch and let them unravel. Don't gloat. Use the space to strengthen legitimate ties and prepare for the moment real stability returns. Your role isn't to stunt their fall, it's to keep moving forward while their collapse distracts them. Practical repair beats theatrical triumph. For the enemy, the humiliation is sharp. Their own coalition, the thing they trusted more than skill or conscience, becomes the instrument of defeat. They realize too late that in trying to control you, they handed you the wedge that split their ranks. When they finally look up, they will find themselves alone, surrounded by fragments of alliances they thought were ironclad. That silence will confirm what their scrambling never could. The game is over. Number 11. Their blueprints get redrawn before they ever strike. You plan the trap. Someone else rips up the map. By the time they light the fuse is already gone. They spend nights drawing diagrams, rehearsing lines, buying loyalty, and scheduling the perfect moment. They feel clever, they feel safe. Then, silence. The meeting dissolves, the money vanishes. The ally who promised everything suddenly remembers a conflict of interest. It isn't chance, it's choreography. The plot never launches because the playbook gets rewritten while their ink is still wet. How can plans just die, you might ask? Because the world that protects you moves earlier than they can. It doesn't wait for weapons to be polished. It intercepts at the blueprint phase, where the real damage is prevented. Think of it like stopping a virus before it replicates. Remove the seed, and the outbreak never happens. Or imagine a filmmaker whose script is stolen, but the studio locks the doors before cameras roll. That's what happens to their schemes. They collapse at conception. You call this luck? No. Luck leaves patterns. This repeats. A favored witness suddenly can't testify. A contract approval times out. A crucial email never sends. Each failed attempt is a data point. Patterns build. The protectors read those patterns and pull levers nobody sees. That's the humiliation for your enemies. They can craft clever plans, but the mechanism that makes them work is quietly turned off. Here's the humbling truth for them. Preparation is nothing without permission from the system that actually controls outcomes. They assumed their resources bought immunity. They were wrong. Their resources only matter when gatekeepers decide to let them matter. Those gatekeepers increasingly choose not to, and the result is a steady stream of aborted attacks. Imagine a boxer who trains to punch a target, but the target is moved each time he winds up, or a storm that dissipates the moment clouds gather because the atmospheric pressure changes direction. Small, invisible shifts destroy their certainty. Every aborted plot is another crack in their confidence. So what do? Keep moving. Don't obsess over the failed weapons you never saw. Your role is to survive and build. Let the unseen network keep invalidating their drafts while you focus on the work that lasts. When the final reveal comes, it will feel sudden to them because they never saw the edits that made it impossible to strike. To the enemy, you keep drafting plans in the dark, signing your name across schemes that never see the light. Keep writing. Your drafts are only making the case that someone has already decided you won't be taken down. That truth is their quiet defeat. Number 12. They're not just saving you. They're moving you into position. Protection keeps you alive. Positioning turns survival into victory. You weren't just spared, you were placed where you matter most. This isn't accidental mercy, it's active design. Your allies don't merely block blows, they steer the board so you land exactly where the outcome favors you. While your enemies scramble to trap you, someone else is arranging the pieces so that every misstep they make clears the path in front of you. That's the difference between being defended and being positioned, and it ruins their plans. How does positioning work, you ask? It's simple, practical, and relentless. A contact nudges a file onto the right desk. A resignation creates a vacancy timed to your availability. A delayed decision lets a better option surface. These are not miracles, they are moves, small shifts, timed interventions. Together, they form a pattern that doesn't look random to the people who read the landscape. To your foes, it looks impossible because they only measure noise and chaos. They can't see the quiet hands rearranging outcomes. Imagine a river that changes course when a single rock is placed in the right spot upstream. Or picture a chess clock where one player removes seconds from the opponent and adds them to you. Or think of a city grid where a traffic light flips at the perfect second to let your truck through. These are small technical alterations, but their result is strategic. You gain ground while your enemies lose rhythm. Is this permanent? No system is forever, but positioning buys time and leverage. It creates momentum. When doors open at the exact right hour, your options expand in ways that outlast a single moment. Your allies aren't handing you temporary favors. They're engineering sequences that compound. That's why your progress appears sudden, because the groundwork was laid weeks, months, or years earlier. What should you do with this space? Build, don't waste a reposition. Strengthen your work, gather proof, and prepare to convert opportunity into lasting change. When you're positioned, your job is to turn placement into permanence, not to test the generosity that bought the space. To the enemy, your loud campaigns only make the map clearer to those who matter. Every attack you mount reveals a vulnerability in your own structure. Those who watch will exploit those openings for your opponent's gain. The more you press, the more you show where to place the next support beam. Hold this steady. Being guarded keeps you safe. Being positioned makes you inevitable. Receive the calm, do the work. When the reveal comes, you won't be surprised. You'll be ready. Number 13. Their obsession is the gravestone of their failure. Winners forget, losers replay. Obsession is the shadow left by a battle they swore they won, but couldn't. Look closely at your enemies. They said you were finished, yet they still whisper your name. They swore you were irrelevant, yet they can't stop scanning your moves. That isn't victory, that's addiction. Real winners move on. Only the defeated stay stuck in orbit. Their fixation on you is the loudest proof that their power collapsed. Think about it. If they had crushed you the way they bragged, your name would be dust by now. But instead, your presence keeps gnawing at them. Every breath you take is a contradiction to their story. Every time you rise, you mock their power without saying a word. Your existence is the scar they can't heal from, the evidence they can't erase. Imagine someone throwing their best punch, only to watch their opponent keep standing. The puncher can't stop replaying that moment, because it tells them the truth. They're not as strong as they believed. Or picture a hunter stalking prey, firing shot after shot, but missing every time. The hunter stops talking about skill and starts obsessing about failure. That's exactly where your enemies are stuck. Why can't they let go, you might ask? Because letting go means admitting defeat. Their power, their influence, their resources, none of it could erase you. To walk away would be to confess that all their effort came to nothing. So instead, they cling, they gossip, they stalk, they circle back again and again, trying to soothe their bruised egos with fresh lies. But here's the irony: every moment they waste on you is fuel to your victory. They pour their energy into monitoring your life, while your life keeps expanding beyond their reach. They become spectators in a game they swore they controlled, and deep down, they know it. So when you catch the stares, hear the whispers, or feel the tension of their eyes still locked on you, don't shrink. Smile. It's proof. Proof that you outlasted them. Proof that your shield never cracked. Proof that their power didn't work. Their obsession is not intimidation, it's confession, and it's permanent. Long after they stop talking, long after they stop moving, the record will remain. They fought you and lost. You haunt them, not because you try, but because survival itself is your victory song. Number 14. The reveal will drop, like a gavel. Everyone will wake up to the truth. They kept their hands clean until the curtain fell. Now the curtain drops. You'll watch the room go quiet, not from fear, but because the facts nailed their mouths shut. Here's the hard truth. Protection that works in secret builds evidence, relationships, and timing. The reveal isn't an accident. It's a designed moment meant to make doubt impossible. When the hidden network finally steps forward, the effect will be seismic. People who mocked you will freeze. People who plotted will stumble for words. And even you will hear the scale of it and realize how much was quietly moved on your behalf. How can a reveal do that, you might ask? Because it converts private interventions into public proof. A file released at the right hour, a witness finally speaking, a ledger exposed. Those things turn rumors into records. Imagine a theater where the stagehand becomes the director overnight. All the backstage work becomes front-page truth. Or picture a dam that's been holding until someone opens the floodgates and the whole valley sees the water's path. That's the reveal. Orderly, precise, unavoidable. Will it shock you? Yes. You've lived with fragments, doors opened, favors timed, threats neutralized, and you learned to accept them as protection. But you didn't see the full architecture. The unveiling will display the blueprint, names, systems, and moves aligned in ways that will feel larger than anything you imagined. That astonishment isn't weakness. It's the human reaction to scale. You'll cry, you'll breathe, and you'll understand why those quiet hands worked so hard. What will happen to the enemy? They'll get the worst kind of silence, the silence of being seen and proven wrong. Their boasts become evidence of intent. Their networks, once a shield, will be turned into exhibits. They will stare at the proof and understand they were outplayed by timing, leverage, and people who valued consequence over cruelty. Don't expect fanfare. This is not spectacle for ego. It's finality. The reveal closes the chapter of doubt and opens a field of action. Your job after the reveal is practical. Gather the momentum, protect the truth, and turn exposure into lasting change. Use the moment to secure what matters, not to gloat. Hold this. The reveal is the system's final move, surgical, public, and irreversible. When it lands, everyone will know you were never alone. The noise will stop because the record will speak. Prepare yourself to receive that truth with calm and purpose. When the curtain falls, stand forward. The rest of the story begins then. And so, chosen one, we reach the point where the picture is complete. Every layer of protection, every twist of fate, every collapse of your enemy's plans has led to this moment of undeniable clarity. You were never standing alone. What was hidden is unfolding, and what your enemies denied is now impossible to ignore. Their failure is the proof of your survival, and your rise is the answer they cannot silence. If this message struck your spirit, press that like button, subscribe,